Hello YouTube, I'm really sorry I haven't made a video for quite a while now. I've been more unwell than I usually am and I've had some very difficult things to deal with. But because I'm a very private person, I'm never going to divulge too much about my personal information, and I'm really never going to appear on camera either, because this channel is all about the work and not me. I'm really not interested in promoting myself as a personality, but just sharing creative ideas with you. And I'm only even saying this because I just had to offer a slight explanation as to why I haven't been making videos as I have promised to do. So hopefully we will now be able to continue with my series, and this particular set of videos that's coming up will be about the major arcana in my everyday enchantment tarot. I'm probably not going to do the cards in order, and that is because I want to keep these videos as fresh and spontaneous as I can and cover whichever card speaks to me at the time. But obviously I will cover them all eventually and you will get the whole set. It's just that they won't be necessarily going from the Fool, as you can see here, right the way through in order. You'll have to watch them as I make them and then put them together at the end. So I've decided, obviously, as I'm focusing on the Fool here, to start at the beginning with the Fool, as the major arcana really can be interpreted as the Fool's journey, and so it makes perfect sense to start with him. And like all good stories, the protagonist of the tarot basically is the Fool, and he leads us through his trials, loves and losses, but eventually, as in most classic stories, fairy tales, he triumphs over adversity and gives us a happy ending, although it is not necessarily the ending, it's the sort of end of that particular cycle in the tarot. But more on that in another video perhaps. For now, I just want to give you, before I start looking at the Fool in more detail, my disclaimer. I am not a tarot expert. A lot of you are, and I completely respect that there are a lot of people watching this video who know an awful lot more about the tarot as a system than I do. I'm just an insightful enthusiast, and this is my particular interpretation of the traditional tarot system. And if you get any decent book or watch any good video about the tarot, you can apply what knowledge you pick up there to my deck, because my deck sticks to the classic tarot format. And I will try and leave some links to other channels that I would recommend to give you more of an expert's view, and I'll put them in the description box below. But what I can offer you is my particular perspective and a fresh take, another angle. So let's start, shall we? The Fool. I like to refer to the cult TV show The Prisoner in this, because he is not a number, he is a free man. He's zero, he's pure potentiality. He's a circle that encompasses everything whilst really committing to nothing. He just, well, he is this he is pure potentiality. Let's stick with that, because that sums him up basically the best. And his free man status is also extremely important. The Fool was my first card that I imagined, and he was basically the motivation for creating this deck. I've heard somewhere, I think along the lines on YouTube, that somebody said that my Fool reminds them of the builder or construction worker in The Village People. Now, if you're a lot younger than I am, you might not know who the Village People are. They were, how do I explain them? Maybe you should look them up. Perhaps you should look for the video of YMCA by The Village People. Anyway, I'm not sure whether this comparison to my Fool and the construction worker in The Village People was meant to be a compliment, but actually it really is, because this Fool is tongue-in-cheek. He's humorous. He doesn't take himself or life too seriously, but at the same time he loves life and has faith in himself. He knows that it all matters, and yet it doesn't. He's an absolute embodiment of whimsical contradictions. He's an anti-hero, and his very existence challenges stereotypes, which is why he had to look like this in my deck. Who would think that an ordinary man on a building site could be so extraordinary and inspiring and visionary? he really sets the tone, I think, for the whole of my everyday Enchantment Tarot deck, and because he just isn't what we'd expect. He encourages us to look again with fresh eyes, to keep an open mind, to keep an open heart, to begin again without preconceptions. He gives us permission to start again in every moment, and to do things differently, to look at things in a more fresh and innocent way, basically. Although he is a grown man, he's also innocent again. He's a bundle of contradictions. So let's look at the card. He has the traditional fool's pose in that he is, well, most for classic depictions of the fool, you'll see this exact same stance of him sort of perched on a precipice. But here he's not a frozen waxwork. Not that I'm criticising in any way any other version of this card, absolutely not. It's just that in this card he's not posed. He's actually a very real man that meets our gaze as he perches on the edge of a scaffold. He blithely skips towards it, really. And here, let's see if I can go closer without us losing the focus completely. Bear with it while it adjusts. Perhaps if I go like that, it might, maybe not. Okay. Here, instead of the classic fool's bundle or sort of pack that he carries over his shoulder, he has a hod full of bricks, because he is a bricklayer on a building site, as we say in Britain, or a construction site, as you say elsewhere. I'm sure we can understand what he is quite clearly from how he appears, but a lot of people might not have recognised that that's what that is. It's a hod for carrying bricks, basically, and it echoes that traditional pose. Oh, where am I? So he's showing us that he's not a fantasy figure, but a person that lives in the same world that we do. He is approachable, as I hope most of my, or all, hopefully, of my characters are in this deck. He wants us to know that he's not an unattainable ideal. He's someone like us, and we can be as he is if we so choose. This is also a card which is not typical in the fact that it has a very high level of enchantment in it, much more than the majority, and it clearly isn't meant to be taken absolutely literally. As with any fool depiction, he's not saying, hey, go up on a scaffold and jump off. I mean, it's symbolic. It's indicative of the magic inherent in creation and the real power of imagination. He's a real man, but a lot of what's going on in this scene is not obviously an encouragement to do as he's doing literally. It's a symbolic thing. It speaks to us on a deeper level. Let's have a look at more of the other aspects in this card. Where shall we start? Yeah, so there are quite a few aspects that echo the traditional. When I say traditional, I just refer to the Rider-Waite version. For instance, in that classic version, you will see a dog accompanying the fool on his journey. Here I have a cat with little neckerchief on. I wouldn't suggest that people put neckerchiefs on cats, because this is a whimsical card. It is not meant to be a literal thing where I would say, do as these characters are doing. The cat is wearing a neckerchief because it's like a gypsy cat. It's a free-spirited cat, as all cats are free-spirited, but this one particularly so. And it has, or he or she rather than it, has their paw raised, almost as an entreaty to the fool to say, come on, take me with you. I want to go too. And as with all my cards in this deck, there are the creatures, the non-human beings, are just as important as, or they're an integral part of what's happening. They're not add-ons. They are characters in their own right, and this one very much so. He's quite a quirky little chap, and not necessarily very cat-like, because I don't think many cats would be in the position that he or she is there. But again, this is not literal. It's very much a blend of fantasy and fact. And again, the paint tin, which is spilled over, actually becomes the water underneath. And clearly that is not something that's going to happen in this nuts and bolts, very immutable reality that we're currently in, but it can happen in our imagination, and it again expresses something. Well, it shows what you can create. There's the power of imagination and your will, really, although obviously we can't actually make that happen. I really wish we could. I'm sure this reality was meant to be more interactive and flexible than it actually has ended up being, but currently in this version of reality we can't do this, but we can in our powerful creative selves. We can envision it, and this is what he's done. And I'm going to have to go through this a little bit more quickly than I'd like to, because I don't want to make 20-minute videos, because I think people might get a little bit fed up if I'm just droning on about the same card. So I'll try and just go through this as quickly as I can without making it too glossed over. I'll try and keep the balance, and as I go through the cards, hopefully I will get more adept at doing that. So the next point is that there is a wild dog rose, as we would say here, or a briar rose, which I think also appears in some of the classic depictions of the Fool, and is very much an expression of purity, innocence, freshness, just almost a childlike vision of the world, that beauty, just smelling the roses, having that, being in that moment enough to smell the roses, very much what the Fool is about. Again, being that very contradictory figure, you would never think that he was about smelling the roses, but he is, and he really encourages us to, I don't like this expression, but it's the one that came into my head, he encourages us to think outside the box and not be confined by any expectation at all, let alone whether we think that a man like this should be admiring or smelling a rose. And next to the, oh, can I get closer? Otherwise it's not going to be much use. Bear with while there's a bit of wobbling. There we go, I think we've focused now. The unseen being of this card here is already jumping into space. Obviously they have wings, so it's a little bit easier for them to do that. I've lost our focus again. I think it's because my pointer has been confusing the camera. Anyway, the unseen being there has wings, so it's a little bit easier for them to jump into space, but they've got their arms in the air and they're really basically going for it. They're fully committed to their action, but they're looking back at the man to see whether he is up for doing it too. It's almost like a challenge that they're giving him. Or it could be a supportive thing, you know, come on, this is okay, we can do this. Take it as you will. I put the beings there, it's entirely how you want to interpret it. I'm just offering you a couple of suggestions as to how you might see that. And you might read the cards one day and think of it in one way, and then the next time you come to that card you might see them in a completely different way, and that is the absolute beauty of the tarot, as I'm sure most of you can appreciate. And next to the unseen being we have a rainbow, very much of this world, and yet a sort of bridge to the other world as well, very much a magical symbol of, and it connects his very physical, I like to say nuts and bolts, I'm sure you know what I mean by that, his very not ordinary, because it's not ordinary, his physical, apparent physical manifest level of reality is conjoined to the more ethereal, magical, creative, imaginative, fantasy levels of reality, the otherworldly aspects. That rainbow is very much a bridge, and very, you know, everything within my cards, and I'm sure within most people's decks, it has a purpose being there. It wasn't just, oh, I thought that'd look pretty. It has a reason why it's there, and you can take my reason why it's there, or you can obviously apply your own interpretation. This is not prescriptive, it's just giving you some suggestions. And above the Fool's hand we have a butterfly, again a symbol of freedom, innocence, and again very otherworldly being, really, a butterfly, very ethereal, very transient, and sort of a guide between the two between realms. And here is, I wish it would focus a bit better. Here, please focus. It's my pen, it's probably making it go weird. Anyway, that bird is a lark, and for those of you who are familiar with larks, they are the most extraordinarily magical bird. They fly up to incredible heights and to a point where you can't even see them, but you can hear them. You can hear this amazing trilling, almost electronic series of trills and whistles and extraordinary songs, and you can hear them when they're invisible to your naked eye. You can still hear them as clearly as when they were on the ground. They are almost, to me, they just defy the laws of this reality. They are again almost an otherworldly creature, and certainly very inspiring and beautiful. The Fool is, for all his big boots and his, horrible high-vis unsubtle jacket thing that he has to wear, for all of that, he's also deeply connected to the wild beauty of the land, and regardless of where he is, he connects to that, and that's very important. And something that, can we get any closer? There is a man here. There's one of his colleagues, a roofer working within this building or construction site, is looking at the Fool with complete amazement or horror, depending on your perspective. He's certainly shocked, bewildered, thinking, what is this man doing? He is very locked into the, he's completely connected to this manifest physical realm and doesn't really understand what is going on here. And behind him, the sky is much darker, more brooding. It hasn't got the rays of light that are coming out behind the Fool, almost like a halo around his head, which is the connection to, for want of a better word, to spirit, to other realms, to the other world. And this man is very much locked into this, but perhaps with this connection that he's making, perhaps he is thinking again too, and again, a vital clue in this card. When you're reading these cards, perhaps he speaks to you just as much as the Fool does. Perhaps he has something to say. He's there for a reason. He provides contrast with the Fool, obviously, because he is much more connected to this nuts and bolts world, but within his own right, he might have something that he needs to share with us. And again, that is entirely up to you. This is very much an open interpretation. And have I missed anything out there? Ah, yes. Now down here in the beautiful green valley beyond the very regimented, it has to be regimented, otherwise you wouldn't have much of a house, but so, both levels of being are important, both order and stability, and this fluid, free-flowing world. The Fool is bridging between the two, and again, the contradiction of the two. He holds the balance. He is the zero. Is there a zero on here? No, there isn't. But he is the he holds all of this within him and bridges the two. So where was I? Yes, this horse or unicorn, depends on what you want. It's a white horse because I think of white horses as being and again almost another worldly ethereal being is galloping down here, and the movement of sort of going out of the, almost going out, galloping out of the frame, taking us into the next moment, into whatever this action that the Fool is making, wherever that is going to, that horse is taking us into that next moment and leading us through the Fool's journey, basically. And again, every being here has a purpose and a reason. And I just wanted to say, while I'm completing this video, that you can see very much in this card that that perspective is not accurate. There is no way that this would actually work in this reality, but I had to put in everything in these cards within a very tight frame. So with a lot of them, the perspective as an artist or as anybody, you can see that that doesn't quite work, you know. It's wrong in terms of how it would work in this world, but you have to just give it a little bit of leeway. I know it's wrong. It's not that I didn't notice. It's just that that has to be, in order to get all the elements in that were necessary for this card, it wasn't possible to put it completely in the correct perspective. Otherwise that would have been far too far away and you wouldn't have known what on earth that was, basically. Oh, I haven't said very many basicallys in this video, so that is quite an achievement. Oh, I don't think I have. Maybe somebody can correct me on that, but I think we've cut down the basicallys, which is a good thing. So, before I finish, I just want to zip over here to showing you the book that goes with it, and showing you that the full subtitle is Jumping for Joy, because every card has a subtitle, and that is the thing that sums them up. That is the sort of essence of them, and I thought Jumping for Joy really does sum him up. And there's so much I could say about him, about this card. It's a fascinating and rich card, and I've tried in the book to condense that as much as I could. Again, I had a very, very tight word count and I could have gone on a lot longer, but I edited and tried to condense it so that you have got his story if you want to read it in his own words, in the first person. He tells you it. You've got the description and you've got the meaning of the card, or as much of the meaning as I could put in. And in these videos I'm trying to give you a bit extra, just to talk you through it in a more giving you another level of the cards. Otherwise there'd be no point to these videos, because you could just read the book. So I'll just finish by saying, or giving you a quote from let's go back over here again. Just a little quote. I could give you quite a few quotes from him, but just one that caught my attention was sorry, I've just used the word attention, and yeah, that's actually what he says in this quote. The Fool says, "I'm not doing this for attention. I'm doing this because the mood takes me and because I can." So he's basically saying that he is in the moment, encouraging us to be in the moment, to seize the day, to just try and shed all of our preconceptions, all of our limitations, all of the expectations of society, of everybody around us, and to just what did we want when we were children? What would we like ideally? That's what he's all about. He's about the ideal of what being true to himself means, and what he has to do in order to attain that, to shed the load of his bricks, and to get back to the actual essence of what he is, which I have synopsized here as he is about jumping for joy. What brings him joy? What is it that he loves? What is it that we love? And you can read this card in many ways, but that's just one of them that I'm sharing today. Maybe in the future I'll do another video about it, but for now I will say thank you for watching. Please join me again soon, hopefully, when I start making more videos about the Major Arcana, and